Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. How you doing out there? We're gonna get into some more Epstein revelations. It does seem to be, in many ways, one of the most important things going on in the United States. Although there's obviously global ramifications. But I will also be talking about Trump's gearing up for bombing of Iran, which I really hope doesn't happen. But considering how unhinged he is, and how unhinged the U.S. ruling elite are, and how they see the writing on the wall of this collapsing empire, very well might happen. Also, I'll be talking about why the term kill line has gone viral in China when in reference to the United States. It's an interesting story there. All that and so much more. Please click thumbs up, click share, leave a comment, all those good things in order to try and spread the world, spread the word in this on these very incredibly suppressed platforms. But let's get to some of the Epstein revelations that have come out since the last time I live streamed with you, or some that I just haven't been able to mention because there's about 1 billion of them. But I will say the theme that I was kind of going with these, all that I'm presenting today, is that they're kind of encircling Donald Trump. I mean, there are so many indications that Donald Trump is and was one of these pedophiles involved in the Epstein scandal. It's not like he was just friends with the guy. There are semi-verifiable, as much evidence as we have. I mean, I imagine the authorities could verify it if they actually tried, but there's a lot of evidence to show that these accusations of him attacking, raping young women, there are a lot of smoke there. A lot of smoke. Where there's a lot of smoke, there's generally a fire. But let's get into Epstein file. So this is in The Guardian. Epstein file suggests acts that may amount to crimes against humanity, say some UN experts. Millions of files related to convicted child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein suggest the existence of a global criminal enterprise that carried out acts meeting the legal threshold of crimes against humanity. A panel of independent experts appointed by the UN Human Rights Council has said. So this goes beyond, a couple of guys, did some horrific things to a couple of girls. No, it's much larger than that. And I think most of you already know that, but I'm not going to stop repeating it. And for all, it really is amazing that all these right wingers who have spent years, jumping up and down about Pizzagate and stuff that wasn't actually true. I'm not saying that the Clintons and others aren't involved in some of this Epstein shit. They certainly are, at least Bill Clinton. But while they were jumping up and down about things that did not actually have a lot of evidence, here you are with mountains of evidence that indicts your hero on the hill, the Donald, that shows just what a predator he is. And you have the right wing, so many of them trying to make excuses, trying to say, oh, he was just friends with Epstein. He didn't. It's like, dude, this is where the rubber meets the road, as they say, or where the rubber meets other things. And it's like, are you really going to defend a fucking pedophile? Is that you're just because you like what he's doing to, I don't know, what he's doing by harming immigrants or going after trans people, just because you like that stuff, you're willing to defend a pedophile? That's interesting. It really says a lot about you. To continue from The Guardian, the experts said crimes outlined in documents released by the U.S. Justice Department were committed against a backdrop of supremacist beliefs, racism, corruption, and extreme misogyny. Now, of course, there's some white supremacists in there, but there's a lot of Israeli supremacist stuff going on. I'm going to cover that more in the upcoming episode of Unredacted Tonight, not the one that aired this last Thursday, but this upcoming one. I'm going to get into more of that. I'll mention it a few more times within here, but when they say supremacists, it's like, well, who do they mean? Well, I'd say definite patriarchy, so that's a little bit male supremacist, but besides that, white, yeah, but also who were a lot of these people seem to be collecting this compromat for, this blackmail for? Well, A lot of connections go back to Israel. There's also connections to the U.S. intelligence state as well, not just the Israeli intelligence state. But anyway, the crimes, they said, showed a commodification and dehumanization of women and girls. So grave is the scale, nature, systematic character, and transnational reach of these atrocities against women and girls that a number of them may reasonably meet the legal threshold of crimes against humanity. So Donald Trump, Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, Elon Musk's brother, so many others were Prince Andrew, ex-Prince Andrew, were acting on crime, were involved in crimes against humanity. And I don't mean their normal day-to-day crimes against humanity, the stuff they're doing now. I mean absolute child sex trafficking that they were involved in long before Donald Trump was president. And again, this is coming from UN experts. And, you know, back to how the right wing, so much of the right wing or the alt-right or whatever you want to call them, the alt-right, to go back to them for a second, let's give the most unimaginably positive view of Donald Trump's connection to this. That he was friends with Epstein, sure, he leered at young ladies, but he never was involved in it. It really just happened to hang out with the guy. Okay, this insane. Let's just suspend disbelief. And also, there's dragons and unicorns. But let's suspend disbelief and say, okay, Donald Trump just caught up in this thing, but he wasn't actually the worst. He wasn't actually perpetrating any of this. Still means that right now he's involved in defending pedophiles aggressively. The where was it? I had the article here for a minute ago. The DOJ has announced that they're done releasing anything. That they did it all. And I mean, this is the biggest cover-up. Continues to be, despite all these millions of documents, continues to be one of the biggest cover-ups in history. Now it's not. Oh, there we go. DOJ declares full release of Epstein files. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced letter to Congress that they've released all the Epstein files. But many of them, as you've seen, are heavily redacted. And even if for the ones that Congress is allowed to go in and see, they can see these quote unquote unredacted files when they go in and they're not allowed to bring even a video camera or anything. They just get to sit down with a pencil like it's 1862 and look at this stuff. They've said even in those, even the so-called unredacted version, they are heavily redacted because the FBI has redacted them before handing them over to the Justice Department. So this idea that they've given over all of the papers, all of the Epstein files, is so fucking laughable and disgusting and repulsive. And I hope everyone can see that. I hope even if you're right wing, even if you are a unhinged right wing lunatic, I hope you can see that this is a massive cover up of a fucking pedo ring. I should probably say pedo more often than I say pedophile because the AI, the transfer, is probably less likely to understand the word pedo. I mean, they might understand whatever, you know, pedo sounds like a bunch of other things. You know, it could be, it sounds like a ski-doo, right? You know, like jet skis. It's a pedo ring. Yeah, they were marketing, they were selling back alley jet skis. Anyway, yes, the DOJ has announced that they have given over all the files, which is so ridiculously laughable. I just want to play a moment of this clip again from Ted Lieu, Representative Ted Lieu, talking about what he's seen, because he's seen more than we've seen, right? He went and viewed these so-called unredacted files, which are still heavily redacted. But I just want to play, you know, whatever this is, 20 seconds or something.
The fact that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files thousands and thousands of times. In those files, there's highly disturbing allegations of Donald Trump raping children, of Donald Trump threatening to kill children. So I encourage your press to go look at these allegations.
So thousands and thousands of times, they say 36,000 in the in the redacted version. They've seen 36,000 references to Trump. And by the way, me focusing on Trump for this episode is not me letting, or for part of this episode, is not me letting the others off the hook. I've done whole segments on Elon Musk and Elon Musk's brother and Bill Gates and Bill Clinton and all of them. So I'm not one of these squishy liberals that are like, let's just focus on Trump and act like these other assholes had nothing to do with it. So they're saying 36,000 mentions in the redacted versions that we've seen. And yet in the unredacted versions, apparently it's 1 million mentions, or some are estimating 1 million mentions of Donald Trump in the Epstein files. So they've redacted whatever that percentage is, 95% of all the mentions of Donald Trump. They've like done their best to redact every mention of Donald Trump. It's unfucking believable. And here's a quick clip from this is a documentary on the BBC from a while ago. I couldn't easily find the year, but this is clearly a while ago. I don't know if this is 20 years ago or 30 years ago, but let's watch a minute of this old BBC documentary. Wait, maybe I should refresh the page. It might. Oh, Instagram just blows.
Of sources who saw Donald Trump at the parties. Most paint a similar picture.
Just describe to us the way Donald Trump behaved at these parties.
I mean, this guy it was like a predator in action.
I went to the washroom and I was going in and a girl was coming out and she kind of looked at me and I go, have you talked to that Trump guy? And she goes, yeah, as I was walking by, he's like trying to grab my ass.
We do know that he was having sex with them.
How do you know that?
Because the next day or days after we would hear about it, he'd brag about it to his friends and it would get around that he scored, maybe 1 or 2 girls at a time, which is what he loved to do.
There's no evidence that Donald Trump slept with underage girls. But what's most shocking is the age of some of the models at the parties.
There was girls, I would say 14, 15 years old from Europe, the European girls.
They were 14 or 15?
There were girls that were 14, 15 years old, for sure. I mean, I didn't run up and say, how old are you? But they looked younger than I was, and I was 17.
Well, you get the idea. So it's also not like these things are like these rumors or talk of this is new. Donald Trump has been a predator his entire life. And, he, of course, famously, we saw the clip right before he first was elected, his first term, saying he could grab women by the vagina and they couldn't do anything about it because he was famous. So it's like, it shouldn't shock you, but it should outrage you. It shouldn't shock you that this is who Donald Trump is, but it should outrage you. And it should outrage you that so many, mainly on the right, want to defend this type of behavior. And yes, there are those on the liberal. Don't call liberals left. All right, they're not fucking left. The right wingers who want you to have abortion rights. Don't call them left wing. There is no left in American government. There's zero. Unless you're anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, anti-wage slavery, anti-U.S. destruction of the world, that makes you left wing. What we've got in Congress is liberals. Anyway, there are many liberals who are trying to defend the actions of some of these others, the Bill Gateses and the Bill Clintons. But you shouldn't defend any of them. Here's an idea: don't defend any pedos. How's that sound? That's an idea. Here's a quick clip from Massey. So now I want to segue slightly to another factor in this, or another more information we're getting from these files about what many are calling Epstein's co-conspirator, but it very well may have been Epstein's boss. And this is also what the next episode of Unredacted Tonight is going to be about, but I'll give a little bit of it here. Here is Representative Massey, who's been great on this, by the way, and on this topic. And meanwhile, the Democrats, although voting to reveal the Epstein files, most of them, should have been out in front with this. Why is it we're mainly seeing Massey speak and you occasionally see something from Ted Lieu or a couple of others, but it's like all of them. They should be just having fucking Festivus on the lawn of the Capitol building every day saying, let's read the Epstein file. We'll read them out loud. We'll read them out loud on the floor of Congress. We'll talk about nothing else except for the fact that the U.S. is preparing to just kill millions of people in Iran. Maybe we should mention that here and there, but here's Massey.
DOJ production that are emblematic of the massive failure of the DOJ to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. To my right is an email that was sent by the victims' lawyers to the DOJ. It was a list of names not to redact, a list of names not to release. What did the DOJ do with this email? They released this email in the document production. Literally the worst thing you could do to the survivors, you did. And they're getting phone calls. A lot of these people didn't want to be known. And we know you touched the document because you redacted one name and you redacted the lawyer's name, but you left the survivor's name there. The next document I want to show you, that was in the title, the victims' survivors' names, all right? The title of this one is Child Sex Trafficking, Co-Conspirators, Fully Redacted. And by the way, I'm going to unredact them here. Les Wexner is in this. Now, your assistant your deputy.
Physically ripping off the black
General.
bars.
I don't know who that voice was, by the way, at the end. But anyway, yes, Les Wexner. Les is one of the co-conspirators, censored by the DOJ. They tried to redact him. They tried to cover him up. Les Wexner, billionaire businessman who owned Victoria's Secret. Not creepy at all, right? He just came up with the idea of selling lace underwear to 14-year-olds. But no, what are the odds? The guy who owns Victoria's Secret is creepy. Also, for a while, the owner of Abercrombie and Fitch, where he put Mike Jeffries in as the CEO, and Mike Jeffries currently being prosecuted for trafficking young men. So you think these birds of a feather fuck together or something? Anyway, Les Wexner, as I'll talk about in the upcoming Unredacted Tonight episode on Thursday, but billionaire, the credible allegations that he was videotaping most, if not all of this that went down on Epstein's properties, which were given to Epstein by Wexner. And those videotapes were used for what do you think? Oh, not blackmail or extortion. Of course not. And Wexner, very closely tied with Israel, one of the biggest donors in the world to Israel, co-founder of the Mega Group, which is a bunch of billionaires who donate exclusively to Israel. One of the biggest funders of the Birthright trip, which is where American Jews can go to Israel free of cost, and a huge donor to AIPAC. Anyway, I will be bringing more on that aspect of it in the next Unredacted Tonight. But here is something that you will not see CBS News airing nowadays. Oh, my God. Do you have any idea that they would set themselves on fire before they air this next segment I'm about to show you nowadays on CBS News, which has become just a straight-up genocide apologist network. But this was several years ago, or at least a few years ago. And they are talking about a CBS News investigation about how pedos escaped the...
Has uncovered a loophole that allows accused and convicted American pedophiles to escape justice by moving to Israel. So Ian Lee has been following this for more than a year, and he traveled to Israel for this investigation. He worked with a group that tracks people accused of sex crimes, which estimates dozens of Americans have used this loophole.
So, he's 6'2".
We are on a stakeout looking.
Okay, you get the point. We don't need to. It takes them 5 more minutes to get into the details of the stakeout. But the point is, they put a lot of money and resources into this investigation. Can you imagine CBS doing that now? But so this is from at least a few years ago, and yes, it is a quote unquote loophole that pedos who've been caught can flee to Israel, and Israel will not send them back to be prosecuted in the United States, and they can just disappear in Israel. And as she said, dozens, but I think it's probably more than dozens, have been able to use this quote unquote loophole. And it seems kind of a prevalent thing to know right now, considering everything that's going on, considering everything with Epstein and the Epstein files. And then in that documentary on CBS, they then go into one specific case of a man who has been caught multiple times committing these pedo crimes, and they're now looking for him in Israel, trying to find him because he's slipped away. But there are some ripple effects going on of the Epstein file information that's been coming out. Of course, not on Donald Trump, right? He's not getting arrested for some odd reason. And really no one in the United States is getting arrested. There are some people stepping down from powerful positions, but they're doing that willingly. They're not getting arrested. That is absolutely not happening. The Justice Department is doing everything they can to not go after any of these criminals. And anyway, here's just a few days ago, the Hyatt chair, Thomas Pritzker, steps down over his Epstein links. Apparently, he was very closely tied with Epstein, and there was a lot of money going back and forth as well. Billionaire Thomas Pritzker has stepped down as executive chair of the hotel chain Hyatt after revelations over his ties with the late child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And by the way, thank you, Guardian, for now calling him child sex offender, because earlier, and most of the mainstream outlets have been calling him a financier. Pritzker said he had exercised terrible judgment in maintaining contact with the sex offender and Ghislaine Maxwell. Yeah, did you? Did you have some bad judgment? Was that what it was? Or were you fucking involved? He was convicted. Epstein was convicted. No, sorry. Maxwell was convicted in 2021 for her role in recruiting and grooming underage girls. Files released by the U.S. Department of Justice showed that Pritzker, 75, was in regular contact with Epstein after his 2008 plea deal for procuring a minor for prostitution. That was the sweetheart plea deal. But so you have some examples of people like this stepping down. Basically, they're afraid it's going to hurt the brand. This is the beauty of capitalism. Yeah, they're not gonna get arrested. They own the government. They own the system. They own the laws. They own the justice system. But they're afraid it might make the Hyatt brand look bad to be full on pedo. So they just step down. It's a little step down. However, in other countries, there are some arrests. I already covered on the last episode the arrest of Prince Andrew. Of course, he was then released. And also, Prince Andrew was not arrested for pedophilia. He was arrested for possibly sharing state secrets. Well, another arrest is the former Norway leader. But he also is, I think it's the arrest has to do with corruption rather than pedoing. Norway's former Prime Minister Thorbjorn Jagland has been charged with aggravated corruption. I like the aggravated. He's like, oh, I'm so corrupt. Just like a furious, oh, am I corrupt? After a police probe into his alleged ties to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It comes as Norway's royal family battles scandals on multiple fronts, with charities this week moving to cut or review ties to the crown princess due to her past contact with Epstein. Investigators said they were looking into whether gifts, travel, and loans were received in connection with his position. So again, the corruption connected to Epstein. For some reason, they don't seem to be that concerned about the children. Whether these people were involved with these children. I mean, maybe it could be that they don't have enough evidence. Well, not with Prince Andrew or ex-Prince Andrew, but with this guy, maybe they only have evidence of gifts and things. I don't know. But so we are seeing this in other countries, just not in the United States. No one getting arrested in the United States. However, even the woefully corrupt UK, I already mentioned ex-Prince Andrew being arrested and then released. But police in Britain arrest former Ambassador Mandelson in a probe into the Epstein ties. On Monday, arrested Peter Mandelson, former UK ambassador to the United States, came days after a friendship with Epstein landed the former Prince Andrew in police custody. And by the way, there's a gruesome image you'd think for this article, but it actually is an ad for sleep apnea. So you're scrolling through this article from the AP on Mandelson involved in a pedo ring, and then they show a drawing of a woman moaning, and it turns out she's just got sleep apnea issues. That's all. Police are investigating Mandelson over claims he passed sensitive government information to Epstein a decade and a half ago. He does not face allegations of sexual misconduct. No, how could he? Of course not. Wasn't doing anything like that. He was just passing sensitive information. That's all it was. So, again, in other countries, we are seeing a few arrests here and there. This does not mean these people will be held accountable. They very well will get off, get let free because they are still groups. They're still part of the powerful circles of the hierarchy of the oligarchy, and therefore, I'd be shocked if Mandelson spends a long time in prison. But at least we are seeing some sort of movement in the justice system in some of these other countries, but not in the U.S. No one other than literally Epstein and Maxwell arrested in the United States. Okay, I'm going to move on from Epstein for a little bit, but like I said, a lot more on Les Wexner, his history, and everything else. The accusations against him, the possible truth against him, truth about him, and that's all on Thursday's Unredacted Tonight. But let's keep moving. I wanted to bring you a little update on Iran. This is from Dropsite. They do good work. Donald Trump is considering a targeted military strike on Iran. You don't think Trump wants to distract from anything right now by having a war with Iran, do you? You don't think there could be anything there. Now, if you watch any of my stuff, I'm not one of these people who literally thinks the war with Iran is just about distracting from the Epstein files. It very much is about the petrodollar, about shutting down any states that decrease the power of the petrodollar. And Venezuela and Iran are the two top states on that list. Venezuela, we've already kidnapped their leader. And Iran, we are quite possibly planning an attack on them. And also, I'd say U.S. and Israel probably involved in the death of their prime minister last year. President last year. Anyway, Trump is considering a targeted military strike on Iran within days to force Iran to submit to U.S. demands, according to the New York Times. And by the way, if New York Times says anything, that means it was leaked from the administration, which means the administration wants the New York Times to know it. So that means can also be propaganda. Now, sometimes it's true, but it could also be that Donald Trump wants them to think he's getting ready to bomb them. If that information is coming from the New York Times, then you should have that in the back of your head. But Donald Trump has kept open the possibility of a broader campaign later this year aimed at toppling the country's supreme leader. The report comes as 2 U.S. carrier groups have moved within striking distance of Iran, which would be poised to carry out the initial strike. Targets under review reportedly include nuclear facilities, missile sites, and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps headquarters. Several people around Trump are urging him not to bomb Iran. Lindsey Graham being one who is so fucking bloodthirsty. He has never seen a country he doesn't want to bomb. Axios reports that Trump has been presented with military scenarios that include targeting Iran's supreme leader and his son, but he has not made a final decision. Can you imagine going to Trump for any kind of decision? Like anything. Like which shoes look better? Just anything. Anything. And here we are as a nation going to him for decisions on like wars that could pop off nuclear Armageddon. And we're like, yeah, this is the guy we need making the decision. He'll handle it. But yes, you will hear a lot of updates on Iran, but you will Never hear discussion of the petrodollar, discussion of why Iran is such an important country to collapse for the United States. And Iran is very powerful, by the way. So bombing Iran is not like bombing Iraq. It's very different and harsh ramifications. Not just U.S. bases could be hit in the region. That's very true. Israel could be hit as well. But Iran can really fuck up some U.S. Trade flows, U.S. oil flows. There's a lot of cards that they can play. Iran's foreign ministry said on Saturday that Tehran has designated, I love this, the military forces of all European Union member states as terrorist organizations in response to the EU labeling part of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps a terrorist entity. It based the decision on the principle of reciprocity. So basically, the EU is declaring the Iran military a terrorist organization. So Iran has now declared the EU a terrorist organization. It's a good choice, I think. It's good for them. I mean, who's murdered more people, right? The U.S. and the EU over the past 20, 30 years, or Iran? Who's murdered more people? The U.S., as I said in a Substack that I just put up, yesterday? I don't know where I am or who I am or what I am. But, Substack I just put up yesterday. The U.S. has killed 6 million. The estimates are 6 million from our global war on terror over 20 years. 6 million people. And another study came out saying 38 million have been killed by our sanctions, almost exclusively our sanctions, but there are a few sanctions from EU or something, but mostly the U.S. sanctions. So you add those two together, you got 44 million murders by the U.S. over the past few decades. How's that compared to Iran? How many has Iran killed? Right. Okay, I wanted to move on to this, something that's gone viral in China, which has gone so viral that now the U.S. propaganda outlets are like trying to fight back against it, trying to refute it. But it's this concept of the kill line, or defining it as the kill line. And it comes from the term comes from playing video games. And while I understand this about video games, I didn't know this was the term, but they call it the kill line when your health, video games, they'll have a health meter or something. Your health meter is like right at the bottom. And it means if you take one more shot, you're dead, or something goes wrong one more time, you're dead. So they call that, he's at the kill line. So then they started calling it the kill line for Americans, where you have one emergency and you're essentially homeless, or you're bankrupt, or you have no savings and you're just completely fucked. You're at the kill line. You're at the one more traumatic thing happening and all is lost. And so I want to read a little from Arnaud Bertrand's Substack. The hottest term on Chinese social media right now is kill line. If you go to Bilibili or any of these big Chinese social media outlets, everyone's talking about it. In late 2025, a kid named Alex started going massively viral. I think he's Chinese, but he was in the U.S. when he started posting this. Massively viral on Bilibili for videos where he described poverty in America. He coined the term kill line to describe where many of Americans are at. And, one emergency, one single shock, and they're in irreversible poverty. It pushes them into irreversible poverty they can't get out of. It's hard to overstate the cultural impact he's had in China. In barely a few weeks, kill line became part of the everyday lexicon. Due to the staggering resonance his content was having in China, Alex became the target of an extremely vicious doxing campaign. He also got targeted by Western media outlets like the New York Times. And here's the thank you, Soon Heaven, for supporting the show. Here is the New York Times article where they're trying to, it's hilarious propaganda, trying to basically refute the idea that a lot of Americans are at the so-called kill line. But it doesn't actually, from what I see in it, it doesn't actually refute that Americans are at that point. It just tries to say, well, China has a lot of poverty too. That's basically what the response is from the New York Times. They say kill line has been used repeatedly on social media. This is now New York Times and commentary sites, as well as news outlets linked to the state. It has gained traction in China to depict the horror of American poverty, a fatal threshold beyond which recovery to a better life becomes impossible. The phrase is used as a metaphor to encompass homelessness, debt, addiction, and economic insecurity. In its official use, the kill line hovers over the heads of Americans, but is something Chinese people don't have to fear. Now, they, in this article, then try to pump out a lot of U.S.-backed propaganda about how, oh, well, you know, China has a lot of poverty, and the fact that most Chinese families have savings. This is one of my favorite lines. The fact that most Chinese families have savings in the bank, whereas most Americans don't, is testament to the fact that Chinese are scared that they're going to be screwed, and therefore they're more likely to keep savings. I don't know if that really it's quite some mental gymnastics there, but their argument is just like, oh, China has poverty. It's like, yeah, but you haven't actually refuted the claim. China may have some poverty, but China also took 850 million people out of extreme poverty over just the past like 30, 40 years. Like most of when people go, capitalism has taken 1 billion people out of extreme poverty when they, 100 million people out of extreme poverty. Wait, 1 billion people out of, billion. 1 billion people out of extreme poverty. They're talking almost exclusively about Chinese people. So it's not actually capitalism. It's actually China has taken 850 million people out of extreme poverty. And that's according to the World Bank. That's not even Chinese media telling you that. That's the World Bank has said China has taken 850 million people out of extreme poverty. And the other reason that there is less of a kill line in China, less of a kind of limit to if you have one shock, then you just can't get out of, is because China may not, the way I understand it, China may not have a guarantee of housing. Like there's nothing in their laws that says you have to have, we will not allow someone to be homeless, but they have so many housing subsidies and so much housing provided by the government or subsidized by the government that you see almost no homelessness, as I understand it. And I've only been to really 2 places in China, so I can't speak to every like on the street example, but I've been to Beijing and Tibet, and they in the more rural places like Tibet, like a bunch of areas in China that are very rural, they have built, the Chinese government has built whole cities to basically give the people living in extreme poverty a essentially modern city and then subsidize them all moving there if they want. They don't have to. And I know that from firsthand experience. I went and visited the people living in holy shit extreme poverty, but they choose to stay there because they're like, I grew up here. It's what I want to be. And hilariously, like Western propaganda is that China is forcing these people out of their homes to go to the new modern city. But you can actually go speak to the people that chose not to go to the new modern city. Like you can go talk to them and they go, yeah, they're like, yeah, it's extreme poverty. It's, you know, the bathroom is a wooden shack over there, but this is where I grew up and I want to stay here. And that's what it is. So anyway, but the reason there's no kill line in China is because you don't have things like you have almost no homelessness. Maybe it's zero. I don't know if it's zero, but you have almost no homelessness. You have paid for healthcare. So that means people don't have, you have free healthcare. So that means people don't have the risk that something is going to happen to them. They're going to get ill or something and then immediately go bankrupt, which is common in the United States. 1 out of every 3 people in the U.S. now get cancer, right? It's somewhere around there. 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4, somewhere in there. And if you get cancer, 50% of everybody who gets cancer will lose their life savings. Will lose it all. It'll be wiped out. That's whether you have insurance or not. So that's unique to the United States. In other countries, if you get cancer, you're not like, well, there goes everything I've ever saved. But that's how the U.S. works. It is unbelievable that the United States, what we do to people who are the people started calling it the precarious position where you're barely making ends meet. It's now over 57%. I think it's maybe closer to 60% of Americans that can't afford $1,000 emergency. So if anything happens, car crash with no insurance, healthcare, etc., if anything happens, it's $1,000. They're just going into debt, going into bankruptcy. Here's one more thing, which is this is not specific to China. This just says this is just someone revealing the truth about the United States. So this is behind the scenes at it just says American Pharmacy. I don't know if it says which one, but this is you can tell he's in the back area of a pharmacy in the United States. Okay, for those of you in other countries, this is where you get prescription drugs in the U.S. And this is obviously a pharmacy worker because you're not allowed to walk back there if you're not one, unless you've just tackled someone and tased them. Anyway, listen to what he has to say about the cost of drugs, of prescription drugs in America.
Hey, come here. Tell me how.
Oh, yeah. And I have no idea why they're playing the Austin Powers theme song, and I apologize, but I figured hearing him was worth putting up with garbage Austin Powers song.
Hey, come here. Tell me how this makes sense. We have a medication that costs $4 to dispense. You bill to the insurance, and they want to charge the patient $97.06.
Say that again?
We have a claim for a prescription that costs less than $4. The insurance wants to charge the patient $97.
So what are we going to do?
We're going to get yelled at by the patient. And they're going to blame us for their insurance, charging them that price, saying we made it that price. Love you, CVS.
So so he says at the end that the pharmacy is CVS. But this is how it works in the US, is you could have a prescription drug. And keep in mind, this could be, someone could need it for their glaucoma or their fucking, arthritis or their dementia or whatever they're taking this drug for. And it costs $4. The actual drug company that makes, I'll get into that in a second. The drug companies and the drug makers are often under a parent company. So while they make money, and anyway, you get the point. But the drug maker says this costs $4 to produce. The insurance then says, sorry, not the insurance. The pharmacy then says $97, so that the corporation can completely screw the customer financially. But that is if the customer has insurance. So the insurance will often cover a certain percentage of that. But often what happens is they'll say, oh, it's $97 and you have insurance. So the insurance says they'll cover up to $50 for this pill. And well, okay, now you owe $47 for a $4 pill. That's if you have insurance covering it. It's absolutely insane. I have a friend who's taking cancer meds and chemo and stuff. And the chemo bill like last month was $26,000. And he has insurance. And the insurance says, okay, we'll cover $23,000 of that. Congrats. We're going to cover a lot of it. Yeah, well, now he's got to pay on top of his insurance, on top of his normal insurance, whatever he pays per month for insurance. He owes $3,000 for 1 month. It's like, what? How could anyone afford this? Well, guess what? They can't. That's why 50%, I think it's over 50% of anyone who gets cancer will lose their entire life savings. These are the reasons. And these are the reasons we have a kill line in the United States where people will drop below it and then basically can't get out of it. Basically, poverty forevermore. Meanwhile, while they do that to average people across the United States, Trump just asked for an additional $500 billion for the military. Before I get to that story, everyone, it would be amazing if you feel like you're getting one beer's worth, like $7 out of this live stream per month, or all my live streams. It's like, 40, 50 cents an episode or something. If you feel like you're getting 50 cents an episode, it would be amazing if you could sign up at reallycamp.substack.com, become a paying subscriber, or you could sign up at patreon.com/LeeCamp. Or if you want to be part of a community, part of the kind of Lee Camp community on Locals, that would also be amazing. That's leecamp.net. We'll take you straight to Locals, scroll down to become a member, and you will then support the show at a similar price. But yeah, reallycamp.substack.com is where a lot of people are preferring Substack these days. But yeah, any of those would help keep the show going. As you can imagine, for some odd reason, corporations want nothing to do with me. So I get almost nothing from ad dollars. I have no sponsors. I don't have the Monster Energy drink over my shoulder that is going to pay me 10 grand for these episodes. So really it comes down to whether you guys want to throw in 50 cents an episode, which would be fucking great. reallycamp.substack.com is where to do it. And you can sign up at more than that, but it's also fine to sign up at whatever that minimum is. And thank you guys for supporting this show. Also, new episode of Unredacted Tonight just came out on Thursday night. I'm actually gonna play that episode at the end of this live stream. So we'll go straight into the Unredacted Tonight episode. If you haven't seen it, you can hang in there and enjoy it on this live stream. But all right, let's keep going. Oh, and by the way, I don't have the links here right now, but I finally have two shows to announce. One in New York, one in Los Angeles. They're a ways off, but I figured why not talk about them for a while. It is, I think one's in May and one's in June. And it's like June 5th and May something. But I will be bringing you those soon. So if you're in LA or New York or near there, I hope you'll come out to a live stand-up comedy show. I'll be doing some brand new shit, and I think you'll really enjoy it. All right. Here's from Truth Out. It says, as working people struggle, Trump wants to give the Pentagon $500 billion extra. And I know these numbers, like, as they keep getting bigger and bigger, it's tough to even wrap your head around it. It just explodes. But, like, the human brain is not meant to even be able to grasp these numbers. $1 trillion is an unfathomable amount of money. So $500 billion, also unfathomable. It is an insane amount of money. White House aides and defense officials have run. Oh yeah, and this is great. So what's the problem with this $500 billion additional? The Pentagon's already about $1 trillion. He wants to add $500 billion additional, $500 billion additional. But there's a problem. White House aides and defense officials have run into logistical challenges surrounding where to put the money because the amount is so large, meaning where to spend it. They can't figure out how to spend that much money. The extra $500 billion endorsed by the top Republican on the House Armed Services Committee would push annual U.S. military spending to $1.5 trillion after the Trump administration and congressional Republicans enacted unprecedented cuts to federal nutrition assistance and Medicaid last summer. They're cutting assistance to poor people and poor children while they're trying to give another $500 billion to the military. And I should add here that in case you've forgotten, the military had $21 trillion of unaccounted for financial adjustments, meaning they don't actually know where the $21 trillion goes. It just kind of disappears. That was over like 15 years. It's much higher than that now. It's like $36 trillion of unaccounted for financial adjustments. The Pentagon, despite being legally obligated to audit themselves have failed every audit they've ever had. They've only had 7. They were supposed to start in 96 and they didn't do it. And then they finally started doing the audits. But every time the audit ends, they give a press conference where they go, we failed the audit. We have no idea where anything's going, where the money's going. We don't even know how many people work here. I'm not kidding. They've said that. They don't know their assets. They don't know where shit is. They legit, there's been times where they've found 39 Black Hawk helicopters. Keep in mind, each Black Hawk helicopter is worth millions upon millions of dollars. They just find them, whoopsie, in the couch cushions, I guess. They found whole city blocks they own. I'm not kidding. Like blocks that they didn't realize they owned, and they'll stumble across, oh, it turns out the Pentagon owns that city block or that industrial park or whatever the fuck. They found warehouses filled with millions and millions and millions of dollars of various parts for planes and jets and tanks and everything else. And they didn't know they had it. And they go, oh, we own that warehouse? Oh, look, it's packed full with billions of dollars of jet parts. Interesting. A lot of the stuff they own is kept because they can't store it all. They'll leave it with the contractor. So Boeing will say, yeah, you technically own this many jet parts worth billions of dollars, but we'll hold on to it for you. However, when the Pentagon says, hey, Boeing, we need to know whether we own those jet parts or where they are or what we can ask for or where it is. And Boeing has said, yeah, we don't know. It's too many parts. It's too much stuff. It's too many billions of dollars. We don't know what to tell you. Yeah, we have it and you own it, but we don't know what it is or where it is. I mean, it is such a level of just greed and corruption. And of course, people get rich off all this. It isn't all missing stuff. Sure, sometimes it is, but, or a lot of the time it is missing stuff, but it's a lot of just people pocketing the money and saying, you know, it's like ghost parts. I haven't seen an article about that. Ghost parts that must be somewhere. But even the Washington Post has done articles on ghost schools in Afghanistan, where the U.S. had paid, back when we were occupying Afghanistan, had paid millions upon millions of dollars to build schools in Afghanistan that never existed. But the warlords or whoever in various localities out in God knows where Afghanistan that you can't even get to, they'd say, yeah, we built a school. And so the Pentagon would send them whatever millions of dollars. Good job building that school. It doesn't, but it turns out it doesn't actually exist. It's a ghost school. And they just pocket the millions of dollars. There's also articles about the ghost troops in Afghanistan, where we were paying various factions to arm and train troops that were supposedly going to support the U.S. cause. And they'd say, oh, yeah, we did that. Send us the money. So we send the money. And the troops don't actually exist. So they're ghost troops. So I guarantee you there are ghost parts to jets. There are ghost jets, probably. There's ghost Black Hawk helicopters. It's people collecting the money, pocketing it, and not actually doing the thing because no one's really going to know if they did it or not. Who's going to? The auditors can't get to the bottom of it. The Committee for Responsible Federal Budget has estimated that a $1.5 trillion annual military budget would add $5.8 trillion to the national debt over the next decade. This is ridiculous, said Representative Jayapal, wrote in response, said, or we could build 3 million new homes, lower the Medicare age, or add dental, vision, and hearing coverage. Literally, they have calculated you could add dental, vision, and hearing coverage to every Medicaid recipient, and it would only cost $350 billion. So it'd be way under the cost of this $500 billion that Trump wants to give the Pentagon. Mark Dansky, thank you for donating over on Rumble. Really appreciate your support. So yeah, it is breathtaking, the amount of waste, fraud, but then also the idea that the military should be this big, that it should be this horrific, that it should be $1 trillion monstrosity. It's also, the military is the largest polluter on the planet. The only thing that is bigger polluter than the U.S. military is certain nations. There are some nations, like if you take all of the United States or all of Russia or all of China, sure, there is more pollution coming from them than from the U.S. military. But outside of a few nations, The U.S. military is the largest polluter, both by greenhouse gases and other metrics, such as, PFAs, forever chemicals and shit like that they're dumping into the water streams, the number of sea wildlife they're killing, et cetera, et cetera. It's absolutely a force for death, destruction, just a horror show. And we're just supposed to throw more and more money at it. Just throw all the money at it. Just give it more money. Let's see what happens. Let's see. That should make it work. That should make it do good. It's going to start doing good if it just gets another $500 billion. All right. I am going to wrap up there, except I'm going to play the new episode of Unredacted Tonight for you. So if you haven't seen it, I think you'll enjoy this one. I get into the one Epstein revelation, in fact, one of the biggest Epstein revelations that no one seems to be willing to say. I also get into the evidence that Donald Trump is hastening the end of the U.S. empire by accident. So, in that way, good for him. All that's coming up right now on Unredacted Tonight. You guys are the best. I'll be back Wednesday with Wednesday's a live stream, right? So Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, I think, because I switch off. Some Wednesdays is government secrets. I think this Wednesday is live stream, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And then I'll be back Thursday for Unredacted again, Friday for another live stream. You get the picture. Thank you, guys. I hope you'll join up at leecamp.substack.com. And without further ado, here is the new episode of Unredacted Tonight. Coming up on tonight's show, new information showing that the U.S. empire is collapsing and most people are not taking notice. I've got receipts. They're for artisanal vegan sausage I bought at a farmer's market, but they're receipts nonetheless. Plus, a Super Bowl ad accidentally showed us the horrifying future of the American surveillance state. But don't you worry, that future won't arrive for another 18 minutes. Plus, I'll bring you the biggest Jeffrey Epstein revelation that almost no one is talking about. It's that I think Donald Trump might be lying to us. That's not it. It's something else. All that and more coming up right now. Welcome to Unredacted Tonight. I'm Lee Camp. Sometimes it seems like everything about the Epstein scandal is being covered endlessly. You can't go 2 minutes without hearing about Jeffrey Epstein. He's in the news. He's on social media. I think they sell Epstein action figures for the kiddies. Last Halloween, I hooked up with a woman who was wearing the sexy Epstein Halloween costume. Don't worry, I asked her to switch to something else before we went at it. But despite the omnipresence of Epstein, some of the most important revelations are not being covered. And one revelation in particular is said by almost no one. It surely can't pass the hallowed lips of the corporate media titans who sold their souls to their yachts and their 3 uninhabited houses long ago. It also can't be spoken by the independent media talking heads who have even the slightest hair-thin allegiance to the Republicans or the Democrats or to capitalism or the patriarchy or the NBA. If you're aligned with any institution, then you're probably not speaking the truth on this. And this grotesque revelation I speak of is barely even whispered by the independent media outside of the two-party system, who I respect on a lot of things, but why can't they say this? Here's the revelation. The Epstein scandal is not just about Jeffrey Epstein. And it's not just about the rich and powerful people deeply involved with him. Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Ehud Barak, Prince Andrew, Howard Lutnick, Jess Staley, Leon Black, Les Wexner, the Hamburglar, and about 9 billion other people. Yeah, it was sad to see those emails between Epstein and the Hamburglar. I mean, dude, have some class. Do not besmirch the name of thieving meat products nationwide. But it's also not just about the national intelligence groups that were clearly involved, the CIA, the Mossad, etc. And it's not just about the justice system that allowed Epstein to get away with this shit for decades. Our justice system stops criminality like a sieve stops water, especially when it has to do it with the wealthy. Not the sieve, the justice to metaphors. If you've got even just a few $1 million to throw around, then our justice system is not interested in you like a eunuch at a harem. They don't care. Essentially, in the United States, law enforcement is means tested. The cops roll up and check your credit report before deciding whether to arrest you. But the part of this scandal that remains nearly unsaid is what it reveals about capitalism. The Epstein story isn't new, unique, or unusual. In fact, sex trafficking, blackmail, extortion, grotesque criminality by the ruling elite of all kinds are commonplace. And most of it remains unpunished and unpublished. Many people think this reveals that great power corrupts, basically becoming a billionaire or a high-level politician or a top businessman warps the mind and melts the moral core before it dribbles out of your helpless butt cheeks. But in fact, that analysis has the causality backwards. It's not that power corrupted these disgusting men and a few women. It's that capitalism is a socioeconomic system in which the sociopaths, the parasites, rise to the top reliably and undeniably. There are other systems in which this would not be the case, but in capitalism, those individuals who have no concern for the victims of their actions are the ones who take control. Their victims, human and non, are myriad. Poor people, young women, elderly people, misinformed people, people in developing countries, wildlife, the air, the future, trees, rivers, dugongs, spotted owls, everything. The list doesn't end. I'm not saying every sociopath is a billionaire or a big-time CEO. They're not. There are sociopaths working at the 7-Eleven around the corner. He told me I had too much Slurpee in the Slurpee cup. It's in the cup. I mean, sure, it's all pouring out of the sides, but that's my business. But I'm just saying that nearly every billionaire or big-time CEO is a sociopath. And once a sociopath has that level of power, no crime seems unacceptable. Why would it? Laws don't apply to them. Laws in our capitalist society are mostly designed for people who don't have the money or the power to get away with breaking them. The Epstein scandal has revealed the revolting depravity of the upper echelons of the ruling elite. But it's not a matter of corruption. It's not a matter of, whoops, it went wrong. What happened? No, this is the system working right. Capitalism rewards people with no concern for humanity, no concern for others. Those people are handed the golden keys and told, do your worst, have at it. We'll see what happens. We must evolve to a system that puts humanity and the natural world first, not money or power. Until that happens, the castle on the hill will always be filled with Jeffrey Epstein. Look, everyone needs to stop being so hard on Trump. He's doing an impeccable job of collapsing the U.S. empire. And no, I'm not referring to his dumpster fire domestic policies. One of the load-bearing pillars of the U.S. empire has long been our coordination and cooperation with the UK, Europe, and Canada. Together with us, it's like the four tentacles of an evil octopus with only 4 tentacles. So like a quadrupus. These partnerships have helped the West indiscriminately pillage the rest of the world to the tune of $152 trillion. And you see, Donald Trump and his minions blast away more pieces of that pillar every day. The quadrupus pillar. This is going to collapse. And the mainstream media covers it about as much as they cover the hydroponic farming uses 95% less water than conventional field farming, which is to say, not at all. Because the world correctly now views Trump as a drunk school bus driver with one good eye and a death wish, many nations are trying to figure out how to get off that bus. They can't just jump off because the crazed bus driver will run them over. So to continue this, again, strained analogy, they're laying out plans to quietly slip off the bus over time. Seriously, metaphors. Trump's unhinged trade wars have fast-tracked trade deals between other nations. Did you happen to notice that the EU and India just concluded negotiations on one of the largest trade deals ever signed? The free trade agreement will represent 2 billion people, and many call it the mother of all trade deals. In it, India will eventually eliminate 96% of all tariffs on European Union exports. And none of this involves the United States. This free trade agreement has been 20 years in the making. The EU and India, over all that time, just couldn't get over the finish line. But then the angry orange man forced them to realize they needed to look past their differences and hammer out a deal because they didn't know when he was going to start biting at their ankles. Now, let me pause for a second and say, everything I'm saying right now is no gushy love poem to trade deals featuring a detailed description of kissing and crashing into each other like waves on a beach or a Dave Matthews song. No, trade deals and free trade are designed mainly to surpass democracy and just over the workers. But that's not the point I'm making here. I'm saying that our allies in pillaging the world are now fleeing our warm embrace. Get it? Okay, let's keep going. More receipts. On January 17th of this year, the EU and the founding states of Mercosur, Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay, signed a landmark trade agreement. It has now gone to the courts to be approved. This deal will create one of the world's largest free trade areas, representing 700 million people in 31 countries. And yet again, nothing to do with the United States, because inviting the U.S. in would be like inviting an angry toddler into the National Sand Sculpture Championships. It's a disaster, and your sculpture will eventually get peed on. The Mercosur agreement had also been stalled for decades. In fact, they started trying to hammer it out a quarter of a century ago when flip phones and frosted tips were all the rage. But they simply couldn't complete the deal. Then Donald Trump showed up with his terrifying global tariffs. Suddenly, the stumbling blocks from the Mercosur deal didn't seem so big. Within months, they nailed it down. Canada, too, is looking to more sane minds for help. Prime Minister Mark Carney just recently met with President Xi and promised a warmer relationship with China. They signed an energy pact while Trump threatened Canada with 100% tariffs. Do you understand how insane you have to be to force a Canadian to head for the door? They're too polite. They'll stay in an abusive relationship for years and just keep telling their abuser, so sorry, I shouldn't have made you angry. So for Canada to get moving means the U.S. is truly monstrous. This is all happening as the U.S. empire crumbles in other ways. The federal debt just hit record levels, but what's $39 trillion between friends? And most Americans can't afford a $1,000 emergency expense, not without borrowing money from a guy named Hoochie on the corner who wears full-face sunglasses and calls you sweetie, even if you're a 64-year-old man. It's not speaking from experience. Many people believe Donald Trump creates death, destruction, chaos. He's bombed 10 countries so far, kidnapped a head of state, and economically strangled countless other countries. But the people saying that aren't giving Donald enough credit. He's clearly bringing together much of the world in a kumbaya moment, a group makeout session. Nothing quite fosters love and cooperation like a bloodthirsty monster outside the door. Think about it. Let's say you have a neighbor that you just hate. You may despise the way he puts out ugly Easter decorations or careens into his driveway at 30 miles an hour, listens to Limp Bizkit unironically. But the moment the zombies come over the hills, neighbors often realize the best way to defeat them is to band together. Suddenly you're locked in your cellar with that same guy dining on canned dog food and laughing about your favorite Simpsons quotes. He doesn't seem so bad now because he's not the one trying to eat your brains. Trump is the monster. He has united much of the world against the U.S. empire, which has done unfathomable destruction to the world. We all need to thank him for his service. Sinclair Lewis, or someone like him, famously wrote, "When fascism comes to America, it will be wrapped in the flag and carrying a cross." I feel like we need to add also a smartphone, but you get the point. That might be true, but we found out during a recent Super Bowl commercial that when mass surveillance comes to America, it will be to help sad puppy dogs. Take a look.
This is Milo. Pets are family. But every year, 10 million go missing. And the way we look for them hasn't changed in years. Until now. One post of a dog's photo in the Ring app starts outdoor cameras looking for a match. Search Party from Ring uses AI to help families find lost dogs.
This is wonderful. You can find your lost dog. Or maybe instead of a lost dog, you can just type into that search box, "black man in the neighborhood." And then every camera in a 10-mile radius will let you watch that black man or any black man to make sure he's not up to something. Or maybe you could just type in there, "college girl walking down the street," and then watch her throughout the neighborhood on her entire walk home. This is excellent. And most importantly, it's unobtrusive. That 20-year-old girl won't know you're watching her. There's no 1910s flash bulb camera going off, or even just 15 years ago when you wanted to track and take photos of an annoyed young lady, you had to follow her around in a van. You had to get a van to begin with. You can't prowl in a sedan, except the 2000 Plymouth Prowler. But other than that, and even if you were in the bushes dressed as a large bird or a hedgehog or what have you, those little click and wind cameras they sold at Walmart always alerted the person to your presence. Click, click, you know? It was a disaster, even for the most skilled leering creeper. But now, with Ring Cam mass surveillance doggy rescue, you can watch anyone and everyone anywhere in your neighborhood. Or hell, with a little hacking knowledge, you can probably watch anyone near a Ring Cam in the whole nation. But what if your missing adorable cute puppy dog has hotwired a car and skipped town? Have no worries. Amazon's Ring has signed a deal with Flock Safety, which has deals with police departments across the country. Flock cameras monitor license plates in many cities using their gigantic surveillance network. We've covered it on this show before. And luckily for your adorable driving cute puppy dog, Flock monitors cars whether the driver has done anything wrong or not. They then share that surveillance with police upon request.
Actually, Amazon just canceled that contract.
Really?
Yeah, after the backlash, Amazon canceled the Flock contract.
Oh, wait, but Flock still exists and Amazon Ring still exists and their doggy surveillance bullshit all still exists?
Yep, you got it.
Okay, that's awesome. But have no fear. The nation's 800,000 police officers have promised they will only use Amazon's fun and exciting new Panopticon for good, not evil, much like they do tasers. But those of you who are skeptical, just think of the possibilities of the new Ring Cam mass surveillance doggy rescue system. Adorable cute puppy dogs will never go missing again. Abusive spouses will never be able to abuse a partner, or they will, but not in the front yard. Murderers will never again be able to easily bury a body in their yard. Sexy U.S. postal employees will finally get appropriately ogled via video cams at all hours. Annoying neighbors will finally be filmed as they do annoying, nefarious things like sit on their porch and eat a f***ing apple. The way it's just so crunchy. It's disgusting. Also, folks can watch teenagers for fun and profit. And finally, squirrels. So everyone in America needs to do their patriotic duty and attach an Amazon Ring Cam mass surveillance doggy rescue device, trademark pending, patent pending, legality pending, to their front door, back door, and hell, living room ceiling. F it. Otherwise, the good people at Amazon Ring Cam will murder your missing dog. No, really, they know where he is. They'll take him out. Seriously, though. Is anyone noticing a trend? When our data was first mass surveilled, we were told it was to catch terrorists. When drones first started flying over American skies, we were told it was to catch pedophiles. When they started watching all of our license plates everywhere we went, we were told it was just to catch criminals on the run. Every right you give up will be couched in something moral and pure and cute. It's time to fight against it. And these are your headlines from the future. Coming up in 1 week, we'll learn a new poll shows 39% of Americans would rather be in the New York City prison with Nicolas Maduro and Luigi Mangione than where they currently live. Dude, free healthcare. Know what I'm saying? And 3 weeks from now, we'll find out whistleblower reveals Kash Patel spends more time trying to make sure colleagues don't get the good carrot cartridges than he does covering up important murder reports. Come on, Kash. Do the job or get out of the way. And coming up in April, EPA sets minimum greenhouse gas standards to ensure climate crisis continues at a solid pace. At least someone is working in that goddamn administration. That's the show. We have a new one nearly every Thursday night. But here's the thing. We can't really keep going without your help. I have no corporate backers or billionaire friends. I hope you'll join up for the cost of 1 beer a month at realleecamp.substack.com or patreon.com/leecamp. Thank you for your support. Until next Thursday, the revolution will have laughter. Keep fighting.